Hey, it's Annalie. In this video, I want to show you the differences between the various Chief Architect programs that you might be thinking of to use in your business. So I'm going to go over Chief Architect Premier, Chief Architect Interiors, and Chief Architect's Home Designer Pro. Essentially, they're all the same software, with Premier being the full version and Interiors and Home Designer Pro having various limitations in each one. The interface looks the same and the tools all function the same. If you're learning on one, you'll be able to use either of the others interchangeably. My intent is not to show every single difference because there's just a lot of subtle differences throughout the programs. This is just meant to be a general overview to show you the major differences and help you decide which version will work for your needs. Which one you choose really will depend on several factors that you just have to assess and decide on for yourself. Of course, one is the budget. You know, how much do you want to spend on the software? Another will be your deliverables. What are you wanting to provide to your clients? Are you doing full sets of construction documents or 3D modeling only? Or somewhere in between? You'll need to assess your workload and your workflow also. So you'll need to think about, do you take on a lot of projects at a time and need to have a very efficient workflow to get a lot of work done with these programs? Or are you just doing one project to get started and you can afford to work more slowly and go with some of the workarounds to get things done? All this plays into your decision, so you just have to take a look at what each one can do and what they can't do, and see what fits best for you. It doesn't matter if you're using a PC or a Mac. I use a PC, so you might just make note if you're on a Mac. If I mention keyboard shortcuts or something like that, it would be Command instead of Control. Otherwise, it's going to be the same. I have not seen any difference between the Mac version and the PC version, and it runs just fine on both. So that is not an issue. The Chief Architect has some product comparison PDFs, and I will link those in so that you can take a look at all of the list of all the different things. But I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just going to go over the major stuff. For the limitations in Interiors and HD Pro, there's workarounds if you need to, but it's just something to consider with your time and your workflow. So the first thing that I want to go over is the prices. Chief Architect Premier is to buy it outright is $2,995. Or you can rent it for $199 a month. And with any of their products, if you choose the rental option, it is actually a rent to own. So once you rent it long enough to pay that full price, then you'd own it. So that's a really good option. So Chief Architect Premier is their top level. That is the top level professional software, and it has all the program capabilities. Next would be Chief Architect Interiors. The price to buy that outright is $1,975. Or also you can rent it for $199 a month, and you can do the rent to own with that one too. This is also a professional level software, but there are some limitations with Interiors. The main differences with Interiors is there is no capability for doing landscape or roofs or foundations. So pretty much nothing outside. If you're solely focusing on interiors, then you don't need to worry about that stuff. And if you're not needing it to generate roofs or foundations, then this would be a good choice for you. And then next is Home Designer Pro. This is Cheap Architect's DIY consumer version of the software. This is really meant for consumers and DIY enthusiasts, homeowners, non-professionals. However, like I said, it is the same software and it does quite a bit of the same thing. There just are some, limitations to it. And that's reflected in the price. It's $4.95 to buy it outright, or $59 a month to rent or rent to own. So it's very reasonable, and it does quite a bit. And then you can always upgrade from there. It's got some limitations in your construction documents and some other things. You can do exteriors, you can do terrains and roofs and foundations with this one, but it's not quite as extensive. So if you're just doing one project or learning, this could be a great option for you. All right, so I'm going to open the programs now and show you how they work. So here is Premiere. So you get this pop-up when you first open it, and we're just going to go with a new plan and use the default template that comes up. You can set up your own templates, and they have the default here, and it's just got all of the tools set up for you. You can set up your own templates in Premiere. And here is Interiors. You can also set up your own templates here, but we're just going to use the default. And let's open HD Pro. Now, HD Pro, it does not have the capability to do templates, so that's one of the differences. So I'm going to open a new plan, and it gives me this pop-up instead. So I'm just going to, for this one, use the default style, but these different styles give you, it changes like your cabinets and your floor style. I mean, basically, here's the different styles that it does. It changes the different settings in here. And so these are the kinds of templates that you can set up for yourself in the other two versions, but you have to use their templates here. And then for units, I'm in North America, so we use feet and inches, so I'm doing this, but if you are elsewhere or you need to use metric, you can, it will do metric also. So there's no limitations with that. So we're just gonna use the default inches and feet and open that. Okay, so as you can see, the three programs look pretty much identical, really. I mean, the interface is the same, all the buttons are the same. They are the same program. There's just limitations in each, like I said, except Premiere has everything. So the first thing I want to show you is your toolbars here. There's more tools in Chief than there are in the other two. But overall, they all do the same things. And then you have various options in Chief. So this is the default tool layout. Then there is a kitchen and bath tool layout. And so this sets you up with all of the tools for doing kitchens and bath, more cabinet stuff. And then there's a terrain toolbar, which will let you build your landscape, roads, sidewalks, stepping stones, all sorts of things, plants, all of your terrain stuff. This is your MEP stuff, and then there's a space planning. So in interiors, you have the default and you have the kitchen and bath. So there's no option for these other toolbars here. And then here in Home Designer, you've got the default, and you've got terrain, and you've got space planning. So you can see the first thing here, the first limitation here is the MEP and the no landscaping capabilities in interiors. So those are the toolbars. Now you can also go in here. I'm going to go back to the defaults for all of these so that they all look the same again. You can go into your toolbars here and you can set these up how you want. You don't necessarily have to use these presets. You can go in here to your toolbars and turn various things off and on in each of these programs, and turn on what tools you need to work on. So you can custom configure this how you want. And if yours looks different in Premiere, that's because I've rearranged some stuff probably here on my own. So, so those are all of your toolbars. You can also get to all the tools through the menus up here as well. The next thing that I want to show you that can make a difference in the three programs is your plan views here. So in Chief, I can set up a plan view, and what that does is give me a layer set, which is here, and then an annotation set, which is here. So this is what layers I have turned off and on, and this is my text and my dimensions and what they're going to look like. So I can make custom sets so that I can have different views when I want to go print my construction documents. So, you know, I may have a site plan, I may have a floor plan, I may have a demo plan. And so these I can turn off and on different layers and change different scales. So, you know, if I've got something at a 1/4 inch scale or 1/2 inch scale, then my text and everything will correspond to that. And this is where you'd be setting up you know, your graphic standards and things for your different views. So in Premiere, you can set all of your working plan. This is a working plan. You can set up your plan views, and you can make more of these. You can rearrange them. You can do anything you want with them. And then your different layer sets, you can add more of these. You can set up custom ones, do whatever you want. Same with your sets for your annotations. This is really handy if you're doing a lot of work, doing a lot of construction documents. These are really great to have. I have different plan views for all sorts of different, I have roof plan and presentation plans. I have different plan views for when I'm exporting for rendering. So you can do the same thing in interiors. You have the same capabilities here, but you do not have that at all in Home Designer Pro. You cannot set up these presets for yourself. You can go into your default settings and set up different views. So I can go here to Tools to Display Options, and I can turn off and on layers to change my view. And then I can go into my settings here and into my dimensions and my text and make the changes there. I just can't save them as a group so that I can easily select different views. I have to go in and change that each time for those. So this would be one of the workflow and efficiency decisions that you would need to make if this is something that's important to you to have preset, or if you're just doing one view every time and it doesn't, you can just preset it and you don't need to have various views. So that's just something to consider when it comes to that. Those are our layer sets. And so within that, within the viewing of your project, you also have these three options here. You've got your library browser, and that shows you all your library items, which include all of your objects, your wall types, your appliances, your materials, all that kind of stuff. That's all in your library, all the stuff that you're going to put into your file. Your project browser shows your different camera views, your floor levels. You can jump to your different floor levels. When you set up your documents in your layout, you can look at those here. You've got your different plan views. So this is a quick menu to navigate around through your project. And then this is your layer display. So this is all your layers. Let me make this bigger. So these are all your layers. So this is real easy if you're wherever you're working on, if you just need to turn a layer on and off really quickly or something like that. So it's just easy to see it to the side. Anything you select, it will show you the layer that it's on. So that's really handy. So let me close that back down. So you've got the same 3 things in Interiors. So that's available for you there. And you only have the library browser in HD Pro. So you do not have your active layer display or your project browser in there. So, but in here to see your layers, you would just go to your display options here under Tools, and you can turn layers off and on here. You just don't have that layer display on the side over here. And then for your project browser, you just have to use the other tools here, just like that. All right, so let's just get into some of the other differences and options. And for that, I'm going to build a little room. Let me just zoom out. I'm just going to build a little square space in each one, and then you can see how it acts differently. We've got all the same under our wall tool. We've got in here, we've got all the same wall tools. So that's not going to be any different. And then here, all the same wall tools here. So that's not going to be any different. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. So this one's got auto roofs turned on, so it just made me a roof real quick on there. So here I've got a little space drawn out in each program. And so the first thing I want to show you within here is the difference of the rooms. So anytime you make a space, Chief works as basically a series of squares and cubes and blocks. So it makes each of these, it makes a room. So if I can select it, and then I can either go here to this tool to open the object, or I can double click it and that will open that up. And then I can tell it what kind of room that is. So I have all of these room types that are predefined for me, but I can also go in and make my own. So I can edit any of these, and I can make my own rooms and set them up however I want and change any of their defaults. You can update the structure, tell it how high the ceiling is in that room, moldings, all these things. So I can choose if that's a bathroom, whatever it is. I can choose what kind of room that is. And then it gives me a little room label and dimensions, which all of that stuff you can customize. And so it's the same over here in Interiors. I can go over here. I can choose, any same room. I can also make my own, copy and edit and change and make my own room types. And there's going to be some differences in some of this because there's no roofs in this one, but you do have the capability to define any of your own rooms. Now over here in Home Designer, oops, I opened the wall. That's not what we want. We want to open the room. So here you'll see there's no option for editing. So we just have to pick from the rooms, the predefined rooms that they have here. Now you still can go in here and change all of your options within that room. You just can't save that as a custom room type to use over and over again later. So that's another thing that's going to play into your workflow and your efficiency. You'd have to go in here and change that every time. So there is that about rooms. So now we've got a first floor here in Premiere. We can add up to 30 floors. So we could make this into a 30-story building. So right here, this tool right here goes up and down amongst your floors. So now I'm in the attic, which it doesn't have, or if I were to build a foundation, it would go down. But I can build up to 30 floors in here. And then I can add floors in between. So if I've already got 2 floors and then I was like, oh, I need to add one in between those 2, I can add that. Now in interiors, I can go up to 10 floors. So still quite a bit. Most of us might not be doing much more than a 10-story building, but you can go up to 10 here. And in Home Designer, you can do 5. You can do up to 5 floors in here. Next, I want to go over the dimensioning tool. It's for the most part the same. There are some differences. The main difference is going to be that in HD Pro, there's no preset for the NKBA. There's presets for your NKBA. I don't see it here, but there's dimensions for NKBA here and here, not here in the auto dimensions. And then now the one other difference here is that Chief Architect, Premiere, and Interiors can get you down to 1/128th of an inch, which is so tiny. HD Pro can only go down to 1/16th of an inch. That may not make really much of a difference because most of us for construction are going down to 1/8 of an inch. So that's just a difference there that may or may not matter to you. One other difference with the dimensions is when you get into your elevations in HD Pro, it won't do auto elevation dimensions, which auto dimensions can save you a lot of time. You can get the defaults all set up and then just click this auto dimension button and it will do it for you. It won't do it here, but that doesn't mean you can't have dimensions on your elevations. You just have to do them manually. So next would be your text and annotations. Let's see. Here's all your text. There's not a whole lot of difference here. You've got pretty much all of the same options here between Premiere and Interiors. You've got your various types of text, call-outs, markers, leader lines with arrows, and you can do macros here, which are kind of codes that you can set up so that it always has the current date, different things like that, that help you in your presets. So down here in HD Pro, if we go here, we don't have that option here. So there's no option to make notes or do macros there, like there is in these two. So that's going to be the main difference in your text. Okay, so in all 3 programs, you have your basic CAD tools, which are just your drawing tools. So think of these, as, your drafting tools. So all of this is drawn automatically for you as you draw walls and things, but sometimes you do need to make your own. You need to draw lines, any other things. You can draw anything. These are all of your basic drawing tools here in your CAD tools. And then you've got all the same ones here in Interiors. And then in HD Pro, you have basically all the same CAD tools here. The difference, one of the differences here is I can take this 3D drawing here and create a CAD drawing from it, make a 2D drawing from this. And you can't do that here. You'd have to draw it all by hand if you really only wanted a 2D drawing. Most of us are not using this type of software just to make 2D. We want it for the 3D, but sometimes you need a CAD detail to pull out. So anytime you need a CAD detail, you've got these tools. You've got these tools to use. So I touched on this earlier. You can do any electrical lighting, HVAC, MEP, all that stuff within Premiere. You cannot do the MEP stuff in here. So if you're trying to do duct work and stuff like that, that's not going to happen in Interiors. And there are some capabilities in Home Designer Pro, but it is limited. A lot of us aren't really doing that as designers, but some of us do, and that is a specialty. So if that's something that you do want to do, you would need to get into Premiere. Let's see. All right, so that covers the difference in the kind of 2D and tools for your 2D. So let's look at the capabilities for 3D. So basically that starts with our camera views and how we want to see what we've done here in 3D. So right here are your camera options. So go back up here. So I've got, for my camera views, these are my perspective tools. So let's go here and turn them on. And let me turn them on here. Oh, it keeps wanting me to do that. Where's my camera? Here we go. So in Premiere, we've got a full camera. So this lets me place a camera wherever I'd like. I can drop a camera in if I want a certain view. The perspective full overview, I'm just going to go ahead and click that. That gives me the outside with the whole thing. So if I were to have a roof on here, I can show you here because this one has a roof. So let's do the full camera overview here. Why isn't it working? So yeah, so if you do a camera, it gives you a sky background. I don't know why that wasn't working for the full overview, but if I do a full camera overview here there we go, that's why. Perspective full overview, that's what we want. I was clicking the wrong thing. Okay, so same view here. Let me get out of this one and go back and do perspective full overview. There we go. So that shows me everything on the outside. So the other option, which we use all the time as designers, is, let's go back to my cameras here, is this perspective floor overview. So that takes off the ceiling and the roof. So you can see a bird's eye view down inside. So that is super handy while you're in your design process. And we have that option here too, the floor overview, and then we have it here too in Premiere, except in in HD Pro, but they call it dollhouse view. But that's what that is. It's the same floor overview. It's the dollhouse view here. So the other option that we have in Pro and in Premiere and HD Pro is this framing overview. So let's see if so the other awesome thing about Chief is it will help you with your framing. So we can look at the framing. So that is not an option in Chief, in Interiors, I'm sorry. It does not do, Interiors does not do the framing in the same way, and so we don't get that, so we can't get that framing view. So, so those are your different camera views for when you want to work in 3D and 2D simultaneously. And what you can do is you can drag this down so that, and here, turn that one off. So as you work here, you can, when you move stuff here, it moves stuff there. So you can work in 2D and 3D simultaneously, and you can do that in all these. So those are your camera views. Let's see. For the exteriors, I touched on this before. Of course, in Premiere, you can do everything. Interiors, you can't do the terrain, foundations, roofs, roads, sidewalks, retaining walls, fences, anything outside. But you can do all that stuff in HD Pro. So let's talk about materials next. So you can see here in your 3D view is where you can see what materials that you've got going on. So here in Premiere, if we want to work on these materials, there's several ways to do it, and there's proper ways to do it. So you can click on the object and you go in and change its material there, and that's the same way you would do it here. In the object dialog box, we'll have a material settings, but this is the tool. These tools will be slightly different and work just slightly different in each one. So this is your paint tool. So you would choose a different material in here and use that to paint onto your surfaces. So it would be that easy to just change that. So you've got that same tool here, and then you've got that same tool here. So the difference in this tool is going to be when we go in here, I can click this and add a new material and make my own. In here, let's see, what can we do in here? Oh, yep, I can make my own material here. So you can make your own material in all three. But there's slightly less options here. There's slightly less options here. So there's my textures. I will add an image texture. So I've got these options here. But if I go up here into to make a new material here in Premiere, I've got a lot more options. To add a bump map, to make my textures much more detailed. So if you are really wanting to do very detailed texturing, that's something you would want to think about. That's one of the major differences in the materials. So the other thing I want to show you is in your library. Let's go to the library here in each program. So you've got all of your, let me open this one up bit bigger. You've got all of your Chief Architect core catalogs, your bonus catalogs, your manufacturer catalogs, and then this is your user catalog. This is anything that you want to add on your own. So you can import like SketchUp files, for instance. All you have to do is drag it and drop it. It's so easy. But you can add any of your own products that you want to. And then when you add them, let's see, if I add one here, let me add this chair, and then you can see it just pops straight up there. You can go in and let me select it over here and open it up. And I can go in here and I can give it all sorts of information, manufacturer stuff. So if you can if you want to pull your schedules, and you can change your materials, change, you know, where it sit, all of this. You can totally customize all of this on your own. So let me go back to this. And then you can do the same thing in Interiors and the same thing in HD Pro. You can drop in whatever furniture that you want. Okay, so next I want to show you the rendering options in Chief. This view here is where you'll see your basic quick rendering options. And I use the quick rendering options for a lot of my work. Various views here. I'll send to layout as an image or screenshot it. And this works great for showing to contractors and all that kind of stuff. But there's different views here in your rendering techniques of how you're going to see this. So you've got your standard, your vector view. You can see it as a glass house. You've got a watercolor, line drawing. Physically based is going to be a little bit more realistic. Your standard is this, and then your physically based is just a little bit more realistic than that. And these are just your quick view renders. So I use, you know, all this a lot. Watercolor is great for doing presentations. And so over here in Interiors, you've got the same options, and then here in HD Pro, let's see, where is the rendering options? What does that button look like? Okay, we've got to be in our 3D view, so we don't care about framing. Here we go. Let's look at this one. Okay, and now we've got our rendering option here. And so you see we've got most of the same ones, but we don't have all of them. So for the most part, you've got everything you need here just to do any sort of different views that you'd like to do. It's just not, you don't have, you can't do, I don't think you can do the lines over the watercolor like you can here. See, this one does the lines over it, but it does have the physically based. And then, so that's for your quick views, and I use these all the time in my construction documents and presentations. I don't always fully render everything, especially during the design phase of a project. But within Chief, there is a ray trace option. So let's see, where is that one? Ray tracing here. So this will give you that next level of fully photoreal rendering. Now I'm using X12, and this ray trace version that they have here is gives you a certain result. Now in X13 that will be coming out this year, they have a new rendering engine. It's going to be much better. So I'm not going to get into the rendering, but just know that there is a rendering option here. There is a ray tracing option here. There is not a ray tracing option in Home Designer Pro. So that being said, many of us export these to other render engines depending on what we're doing. So from within Chief, you have tons of export options. So whatever you're using, you can export your 3D into all these different file types. And the same here in Interiors, and in HD Pro, it's going to be somewhat more limited. You can still do it. Where's my export? Here we go. So for 3D, you can either do a Collada or an STL, which will go into most programs. I mean, I use the Collada file quite a bit, and the STL is also pretty universal. So you can use both of those. There's just more options here. So you can still export from here to do your renderings. And then the other difference is going to be in your file sharing. So when if you're working with another designer and you need to share the files, you do that by doing this backup entire plan, which I have another video on how to do that. You're going to be, if you need to share these files, you can do so. And the like HD Pro will open a Premiere file, but it won't. If you've got any custom layers or all this setup, the custom stuff that you do in here, it won't read that. And then you also can't save it. You can't save it back as a Premiere. So you're limited. You can share back and forth between Interiors and Premiere, but HD Pro, you're going to be limited in your sharing capabilities. So just take that in consideration if that is something that you need to do. So beyond this building, the other thing that we typically need to do is our construction documents and presentation documents. So within Premiere, within Chief Architect, there is a built-in layout function, sort of similar to AutoCAD Paperspace, if you're familiar with that. What we do is we open up a new layout and then we send our views over there. So in Premiere, let's look at it in Premiere. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to do open a new layout. We're going to do a new layout, which is going to open us up in the default. So we can go in and change the paper size here. We can update, let me open this up a little bit more. We can change all of this to make our title block customized. You can move any of the stuff around. You just go to page 0 and then you can update any of this stuff, change it, move it around, customize it however you want it to be, change the paper size, all that stuff. And in Premiere, you can create up to a 1,000 page document. And you can have multiple layouts open at a time if you wanted to. So I use this for my construction documents. I also will use a plain paper without a title block for other types of presentations and stuff. It's really a great tool for doing presentations. So let me minimize that a bit. So it's the same. It's going to work the same in Interiors. We're going to do a new layout. It's going to be, overall, it's going to work the same. The main difference is going to be you can only do a 200-page document. And still, very rarely are we doing construction documents that have that many pages, but up to 200 pages. So you really can do a lot. And then in HD Pro, this is the big difference in Home Designer Pro. When you get into your layout, you can only do one page. So if you need multiple pages, you have to send everything to your layout one at a time and save this and then open. And you can't have multiple layouts open at once. So you have to send your view here, and then you have to save that, print that, whatever you're going to do with it. And then if you need a second page, you have to do another layout. You have to open a new layout and send that view over there. So, and then you don't have your saved views like you can here. You don't have these saved views. So you have to go in and change your layers and update your dimensions or whatever it's going to be and do a new view and send that over, and you can't have that saved. So this is a huge area where it's going to cut into your productivity. If you are needing to do multiple page documents, if you're doing a lot of projects at once, this is going to cut into your profitability in a big way. So it's just something I really want to stress to you to think about if you want to go with Home Designer Pro, because this is a huge difference. This is probably one of the biggest differences, really, that there's not a whole lot of workaround for time saving. The next situation with this is, so what we want to do when we have our layout here, and if I want, let me get out of this tool here. So if I want this view to go to the layout, I will send to layout right here. And it wants me to save it, so I'll just do a sample plan, and that's fine because I made one before. Right, so then this pops up, and this gives us the different options. It can tell us what page we want it to go on. I don't want it to go on page 0. Anything on page 0 is going to go on all your pages, so you don't want that. So I wanted to go on page 1, and then I wanted a 1/4 inch scale, so that's fine, and I'm showing the whole plan, so that's fine. So now that shows up, and now any changes I make here, it's going to show up over here. I can also right click this and I can refresh the view. I can relink it to a different file, and I can rescale it. So if I've decided, yeah, that doesn't look really good on my page, I want to make it a little bigger, I can do that. I can relink it to a different file if I've done a remodel or saved this as a second version, something like that. I can relink it. I can also do that here. I have those options in Premiere, in Interiors. So here's another big difference here. So let's send this one to layout. It's going to want me to save it. I'm just going to save it as my HD Pro sample. Right, so I've saved it, and so it's giving me my options here. It's not giving me a page option because I only have one page. And then here's my scale. So there we go. It sent it here. So now that's set. It's on my layout page. So if I right click here, I don't have near the same options. I cannot rescale it, and I cannot relink it. So if I decide that I don't like the looks of this, if I needed a different scale, I just have to delete it and send another one over and rescale it. And the same, if I need another plan view from a different plan, I just have to send it over. I can't make any adjustments to it once it's set. So this is really where like I said, this is where your efficiency may lack when it comes to Home Designer Pro. As far as building and stuff, there is workarounds for just about everything, and you can do a lot with it. But this, if you're doing construction documents and you need presentations, this is where it's going to give you a little bit more problems. And so there's one other tool that is one of my favorite tools that I just want to show you here in Premiere under Tools is the time tracker. So I can go in here and look at my time log, and this shows me all the time I have spent on this project. It gives me it breaks it down into every single day that I've worked on this. This is new, so I've just done it today, but it will give me a total time duration, everything that I have spent on this project. I think I might have been in the wrong one, but let me pull it up again here. Yeah, so each time, and then it times out. You can set this in your defaults. It times out after a certain period of time. So if you walk away from the computer, it's not tracking time, or if you go to work on something else or check emails or whatever, it's not going to be tracking your time past a certain, whatever you set it up for. You can set it up for whatever you want, but it tracks your total time that you've been working on the project, and then you can export this to a spreadsheet. So if you need to show your clients or whatever it is, but I love this tool. I love this tool. You have got this tool also in Interiors. So sadly, you do not have this tool in HD Pro. There's no time tracker here. So that's one of those kind of luxury tools that I use every day and I love. So I just wanted to point that out, that is something that is not here for you to use. That is all of the major differences that I have found between the three programs. So I would just encourage you to take a look at all three. You can get all three for a free month trial. The only difference would be that you can't save and you can't print when you're using the trial. And when you use the trial, like when you're in the 3D view, it says trial, trial, trial all over it. So you can't even like do screenshots and stuff, but it's a great way you can try it out. And then you can rent them. Like I said, rent to own is a great way to try them out as well and kind of see what's going to work best for you. So I hope this was really helpful. I know this has been a long video, so thank you for hanging out till the end. Good luck with all of your drafting and rendering. And if you have any questions, just let me know and I can help address those. And have a great day.